Hello and welcome back to HCS Weekly.
I thought, this is my life. I have to go pro in Halo.
In my head, thought that was more efficient, and I guess I was right.
He was like the god. We would have to 2v1 like just to beat this guy. Like
I don't know, man. I'll try reaching it. You're like, oh, see you guys later.
A lot of Halo in my life, man. It's been a fun journey.
I love it. Hello, welcome back to HCS Weekly, your weekly destination for all things HCS. I'm your host, ShyWay, and finally, guys, we are here. 5 years of HCS. Happy anniversary. We made it. 5 weeks we went through, just going through the history of HCS each individual year and some of the big highlights and accomplishments. It's been a hell of a ride, but finally, we can start to talk about the future, something I'm very excited about, and I'm sure you guys are excited about as well. So that is the focus of today's discussion. Before we get there, we have our HCS Grassroots giveaway. Make sure to type !Grassroots in the chat for your chance to win the BR skin and nameplate. We give one away every single week. So if you don't get it this week, make sure to tune in next week for your chance to get that giveaway. We also have our news, and then we will get into our discussion. I know, guys, we got Tashi coming on the show. We got our blog post to take a look at in great detail, and we got your questions at the end of the show that we'll take as well. First, let's take a look at the news, though, with MattyRums from DukeCombo.com. Matty, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Not much. You doing good, man? We got big news this time around. We got something to talk about.
We got the blog post, but I'm gonna leave that for the two of you to talk about.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we got a few things to talk about. We'll start off with our usual, the playlist updates.
Sure.
For MCC, they added Rocket Race to Action Sack for Halo 2 Anniversary and Halo 3. Mm-hmm. On Halo 2 Anniversary, you can play on Stone Town, Bloodline, and Remnant. And Halo 3, you can play Isolation, Sandtrap, Valhalla, Rat's Nest, Standoff, and Avalanche.
Nice. So Rocket Race, of course, just continuing to add and mix up different playlists into MCC, keeps things fresh, gives you guys opportunities to play stuff.
I think they might have customized the maps a little because they were in the blog post. They called them like Speed Town, and they added speed in a bunch of the names.
Or it's not just the title changed.
Yeah,
like hopefully they put like a little track in there, like something. They would have to direct you in the right. It's Rocket Race though, so actually no, it's a race still. You can throw people off their course with the rockets, right? So that would be pretty cool. Something worth checking out. See how that goes. We have some updates in Halo 5 as well.
Yeah, today they added snipers into the playlist, and that is also a ranked playlist that'll be available for the month of November. Mm-hmm. And then in 2 days, they are adding in Triple Team and removing Roaming King.
Right. So as usual, continuing to add in like a rotational playlist. Every once in a while, they'll add something. And we've seen Triple Team, we've seen Roaming King, so stuff that you guys are used to. We have the development update as well for MCC that continues.
They put out a post on Waypoint. It talked a little bit had a lot of stuff in it, but I'm just going to go over a few things.
Yeah.
They mentioned crossplay and cross progression. Mm-hmm. Still no word on crossplay. They're still looking into it. So
they know it's important. So I feel like
especially now.
Yeah. Whenever they do answer that question, it needs to be a big confident answer. So I guess they will kind of save it for whenever that happens.
But they are adding cross progression.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice if you're a campaign player. So you'll be able to save your campaign progress on your Xbox and be able to play it on PC.
Yep.
But mid-mission saves won't be saved. Only, I guess, whole missions altogether. So checkpoints won't
so make sure you complete the mission before you. Which is something consistent with other Xbox games, right? Something cool about playing Xbox now is any save games data that you have on your Xbox, you can take over to your PC, assuming it's on the Windows Store or I guess now Steam as well. Some matchmaking updates as well.
They mentioned what we'll be able to see currently scheduled. Excuse me. Right now in the social playlist, we'll have 1v1, 2v2, 4v4, 8v8, 8-player free-for-all, and 12-player free-for-all. And then competitive, we'll have Invasion and Team Hardcore. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have the Heroic and Arcade Firefight as well.
Awesome.
And that's all tentatively scheduled. It could change, but as of right now, that's what they got. And then they mentioned a little bit about the customization and progression system. As far as armor pieces, all the original armor pieces from Halo Reach will be in the game. And they didn't mention anything about anything new yet.
Okay. We do know that the progression system, the whole armor customization system has changed a little bit. They're using this new Epic's, or not Epic, I guess the Unreal Engine now. for that, but we'll have to wait and see if they add some more armor pieces. But hopefully some good reasons to continue to play, incentive to continue to play. We also have an extension on the Halo Reach PC flight. That's nice.
Yeah, some good news. I guess came as a surprise to a lot of people today. I know it was to me. They extended the PC Reach flight for a whole nother week. Could possibly be longer, but we'll have to see. They mentioned that they've addressed a bunch of bugs that'll be coming in a patch, and we'll receive patch notes on that, which will be nice to see. Not everything will be fixed. Hopefully, some things, but we'll see.
Have you had Yep, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, have you had a chance to play it yet?
Yeah, I played a few games. I came across bugs where I was getting stuck in the settings, and I'd have to Alt F4.
Okay.
But I submitted my report. Hopefully it gets fixed.
Right,
But,
you can submit.
yeah, I was having fun. I was having fun playing it.
Yeah,
Gotta
I'm
get
glad
used to
they.
on the mouse and keyboard again.
Right, that's so weird for me. I'm glad they extended it because the week just blew by. I feel like I barely got to play it. But did you just first time you get on mouse and keyboard for Halo? What was that like for you? Because for me, it was like, okay, this right stick or right click to aim down sight feels like it needs to be toggle. So I changed that immediately, right? Weapon switching is so weird because you're used to 1, 2, 3, 4, and now it's just just on one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, should I even just change that to an entirely different key or something? I got my melee and
I changed
I'm
some
putting
of
that
the
on my mouse as
around.
well. The melee,
Yeah, exactly.
just flipping stuff around because Halo is a very different game than your typical PC shooter. So kind of translating it onto keyboard's been an interesting experience for me. I'm trying to spring jump on it as well to see how that works. And it does work, by the way. But yeah, interesting. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it was a lot of me just fumbling, hitting, fat fingering a bunch of keys because I haven't played PUBG in a while, so that was my last keyboard and mouse experience.
Yeah.
But there also will be some new modes in the flight. They're adding social free-for-all and 12-player infection free-for-all.
Nice.
Which we didn't see in the past flight, so that'll be cool to play.
So on top of the extension, you guys got some new stuff to mess around with, and FFA sounds like a pretty fun way to to get back into some Halo Reach. We also have some other announcements, not flight specific.
Yeah, we have two roster announcements. One coming from Simplicity, which is their first Halo team. They picked up the roster of Ares, Straight Sick, Shelly, and Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, Infinite, who we've seen at the past few tournaments, announced a new roster, Boobadooboo, Trippy, Commonly, and Tusk.
Right. So Simplicity, the same roster that we remembered from before. This would have been Aspire previously.
Mm-hmm.
Ares, Straight Sick, Shelly, Fantasy, really great roster. Looking forward to that. And then Infinite is a new team, right? So we've seen Infinite previously, but now they picked up different players. You got Boo Boo, Trippy, Commonly, Tusk, very talented players, but a roster we haven't seen just yet. So curious to see how these guys perform. Of course, Fatal Ambition was a team that had some of these guys on it that really stood out at the last event. So we'll see how that works out. We have some tournament results as well moving forward with this week.
Yeah, on Saturday was the final DreamHack qualifier. First and second place, pretty familiar. First place was Tox Gaming. Second place was Lux Gaming. And then third and fourth went to, went to Mantra, or now Infinite, and Simplicity. So usual names we're used to seeing at the top.
Yeah, Talk's making their way as the #1 seed in our upcoming DreamHack event. So Talk's doing a great job in these onlines. We'll see if they carry that over. Of course, they didn't win for once in the last event with Lux. So that's the big kind of story that we're looking forward to in the next event. K-Matify had a Halo 2 Fright for All event. What's that? That sounds cool.
Yeah, so K-Matify, if people don't know, he's a content creator, streams on Twitch. Very funny guy. Yeah. And Halo 2 is his game of choice. So he held a Fright for All, which was just a Halo 2 free-for-all, double elimination style. So first place, we had Stormy V2. Second place was Zycane or Zacane. And third place, we had Rodriguez LA.
Awesome. I love when Halo 2 gets that well-deserved appreciation. I feel like there's not enough Halo 2 stuff going on, considering we have a Halo CE community and Halo 3 events and some Halo 5 stuff. It's nice to see Halo 2 get some love. So keep it up, K-Matify. I like it. Console Gaming League with some Halo 5 2v2 as well. What's this?
Yeah, I wasn't able to find team rosters, but I grabbed what I knew. They had a Halo 5 2v2. First place was Simply Fear Me and Costa Clan. Second place was Fireboy and Tusick. And third place was UEG and Bairds.
Awesome. So good stuff from Console Gaming League. I think that's their first Halo 5 2v2. So, just continuing the 2v2 events that we've been having going on online. And that's also great practice for Atlanta coming up just in about a week now. We're getting so close to
Yeah,
that.
real close.
Yeah. Upcoming tournaments, Atlanta being the main one. Do you have anything else?
Sunday, November 17th, if you're in the San Francisco area and you're a Halo 1 fan, there's the NorCal Halo San Fran LAN at the Emporium, San Francisco. I looked up the Emporium. It's a pretty cool. It's like an arcade bar, and I guess they have an area for LAN parties. So it looks like a pretty cool place if that's your thing.
So if you're in San Fran, you've got a good opportunity for some Halo goodness, I guess. Of course, in the meanwhile, we've got DreamHack Atlanta going on as well. So some good Halo stuff to look forward to just in the next weekend, November 15th to 17th. That'll cover everything for the news today. Guys, remember, if you want any more details on any of this, make sure to check out noobcombo.com. Matty runs the site. He's got all of this news up there on a regular basis, so you can get all the information that we've been talking about. Matty, thank you so much for joining me.
You got it, man. Anytime.
All right, guys, we are just about ready to move on to our chat with Tashi. We'll talk about the future of Halo esports. Before we do get there, I do have to give a little bit of a tribute to our friend Bravo. I'm sure you guys remember Bravo. Unfortunately, he couldn't come on to the show today. He's been a very busy man, but he does have a quick video for us. I got to say, though, Bravo, from the beginning to the 5 years in HCS, one of the most important players, just kicking it off with his roadmap and the video content that he created, being a dedicated caster and just building this community to what it is today. Bravo's done amazing work for us. So unfortunately, he couldn't be here, but he has a quick video for you guys to share. Let's take a look at that.
Hey, what's up, HCS Weekly? I really wanted to join Tashi on today's show, but I'm on the road and I'll be live when HCS Weekly is live this week. So I wanted to send over a quick video just celebrating 5 years of the Halo Championship Series. I was really lucky to play a small role on the team that launched the HCS. And Tashi and I have kind of been reminiscing of back when the Halo Championship Series was the Halo Arena Championship Series pre-launch, and a lot of other fun stories that I'm sure he'll share a little bit with you today. But I want to give a huge shout out to the two most important groups of people. First of all is the players. Whether you played in one HCS tournament or you've played in many and dominated many, you know who you are. And also, of course, the viewers. Whether, once again, you've watched just a few tournaments or whether you've religiously watched all or almost all. The HCS always was built to just showcase the highest level of competition and ideally, make the top players a good bit of money along the way. And I'm really excited to see what the next 5 years have in store. Tasha, I know you're cooking up a game over there. You're cooking up some plans. I want to hear about them. But yeah, you guys have a great show, and happy 5 years, HCS.
Special thanks to Bravo once again. Unfortunately, I can't hear it on my end. I'm going to have to go back and check it out. I'd love to hear what he had to say. But let's get into today's show. I'm excited to welcome our lead esports producer, Tashi, to HCS Weekly.
Hey,
Tashi, how's it going?
How's it good, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Sorry, I know the timing between us is going to be something to work around. Yeah, no problem. But how you been? You got to be kind of busy with the 5 years HCS, just everything going on with Halo Reach in the flighting stage right now, and then of course the future with Halo Infinite. Are you doing okay over there at 343?
Yeah, doing great actually. I tell a lot of people, either inside the studio or out, that for me personally, like this is the most exciting time that I've had at 343. And February is gonna be 6 years, which is kind of crazy, but I've been very fortunate enough to help out on a lot of different projects, and of course HCS is the one that's near and dear to my heart. And so, building HCS with a team here for Halo Infinite is definitely the most exciting time that I've had here. So it's been great. Can't complain.
Yeah, I've enjoyed just kind of following the experience. Of course, having the 5 years going through it with guests that we had on the show and just going over some of these great highlights. On Twitter, you guys had some cool stuff going on as well, and I had to make sure to cherry pick some of it. I'm assuming Lalo created this. Who created the all-star matchups between the pro players? Guys in the chat, I'm sure if you've been watching on Twitter, they've been putting different pros up against each other and saying who's your favorite, and we had to select them down to the grand finals. Was that Lalo's doing?
Yeah, Lalo's been driving pretty much all of that. But yeah, before the whole thing kicked off, we just as a team got in a room and brainstormed about what cool stuff that we could do to celebrate and what we could pull off. So that was one of the ideas. I'm glad we were able to do it because it's been a lot of fun to see all the results. And I mean, even though we didn't get it, we were this close to a Roy versus Frosty 1v1 yesterday.
I know. I hope you guys got a chance to check that out. I was just looking at it right now. We've got a couple little images. So semifinals, we had Lethal and Ola, right? And then Ola won that one, which we'll have. There it is, right there. You could see Ola 56-44. Lethal very popular, but Ola managing to make his way through. But then we had this Frosty Roy one. And this one was great to look at because it was a 50-50. You tweeted about it as well. You're like, oh, that's awkward.
Well, we honestly didn't know how to break the tie, like in a way that the community would be like, oh yeah, those are the results. Yeah, that's who won. If you look at the number of votes casted, it's an even number. So it could very well have been split down the middle. We actually reached out to Twitter for some help on this too, but ultimately we decided let's kind of put it out there to the community and see how we could come up with a cool way to break the tie. And the 1v1 was almost a cool idea that came out of it, but ultimately Roy just being the most humble person on this planet that I've ever met and the ideal human. Yeah. Like, God, Roy, it's a cool idea, but I'll gladly bow out and give Frosty the free win. Shouldn't have been a tie to begin with under the previous 5 years parameters, although I most definitely appreciate the love. The man has been dominant. Good luck in the finals, my friend. God, Roy, like, even when he's not playing Halo, he's still just as selfless. I feel like even just off of reading that, I was like, damn, I want Roy to win now. Like, change up my vote and everything. But yeah. Roy backed out, and then here we are. Grand finals is Frosty and Ola. I think we have an hour left. Are we done now? Is it guaranteed? I think it's ending soon. There's like a minimum 24-hour poll, so yeah, you can vote now. In the finals there.
You got a couple minutes left there. I think Ola is the current leader there, and Ola, I chose him. Did you make your selection already?
I usually just to avoid bias, I pick whichever one happens to be on top. So okay. I guess in this one, I voted Frosty by default. But that's really just so I can see the results. Imagine Frosty just wins now by one vote.
Oh my God! You guys go all in and vote right now. I think you've got like a few minutes left. You might be able to change it a little bit. But Ola's a pretty big crowd favorite, and he's been around for a lot longer, so I'm not too surprised. But that was just one initiative and kind of preparing us for this 5 years HCS, and finally we're here. You've released this blog post, pretty large blog that we got to take a look at here. And as far as just kind of today's discussion, I was thinking we would just kind of go through it together, and everyone in the chat, you guys can kind of be there with us along the way. If anybody in the chat has questions, ask your questions. UGC is going to be looking out for those questions, and we'll grab them and ask Tashi. Now, remember, they have to be kind of reasonable questions. You can't just ask like, what's the gameplay in Halo Infinite going to be like, within reason. Tashi will do his best, and if he can't answer, he can't answer. But this is kind of what this episode is supposed to be, is kind of a forum to get full understanding of what we've got here as a blog, and your questions, make sure that they're all answered.
Cool. And I've got the blog open right here as well. So this thing is massive. So I'll make sure I have it open too, so I can be relevant and on topic.
Yeah, no problem. And I remember you had shouted out, just before we got on, you were talking about Bravo, how he was kind of here from the inception of all this, and he was the one who had started writing these big posts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, if you look at the very top, the date we decided to celebrate for the 5 years, the date it was announced. And so the link to that blog is at the very top of this new blog, and that one was written by Bravo. And I can still remember, all the drafts for that, and when we finally, pulled the trigger on that, and when, the Halo Esports landing page went live, and all the work that went into that, and then shortly thereafter was the MCC Invitational. So, yeah, all these memories are flooding back.
Do you feel like you're seeing a bit of a parallel now that we're kind of fast forward 5 years? It's kind of like a rebirth in a sense. You kind of take everything that you learned and you're going through that same kind of experience once again, because you were just before launching Halo 5, I guess, was how everything kicked off.
It would have been MCC. So
MCC, right? MCC.
Yeah. So honestly, yes. Like, a lot of times we get asked, when did work on this really start? And there's a couple of different ways that you can answer that. Like, one, and honestly, all of the stuff that we're working on today is a culmination of everything we've done in the last 5 years. And, we hope that that's the case, because it means that we're learning and building off of what we've been doing and all of our, achievements and missteps along the way. And so, in earnest, this is the culmination of these last 5 years. So, we're excited to finally get these details out there.
Yeah. And I'm excited to be able to read these with you. So, Let's take a closer look. I'm going to skip down to the updates, evolutions, of course. Kind of just to preface it, sharing your vision for what you want to achieve with Halo. And what I love is just the transparency that you're planning on having, and the planning going forward, which is something that's so huge, especially in just giving us as players confidence and the organizers confidence going forward with all these events. But let's start with growing international regions. Tell me a little bit about this.
So we've obviously received a ton of feedback from international players over the last couple of years. Like when HCS first started, it was actually only North America, and international players wanted to be involved, and so we did that with the Halo World Championship, and they had more feedback, and so this is kind of the evolution of all of that. But historically, we can use Australia as an example. I think it really crystallizes what we're trying to achieve. But in the last year of HCS, last couple of years actually, especially as it pertains to Halo World Championship, like if you were an Australian player, if you had to be like number 1 or number 2 to receive really any of the benefits that the league was offering.
Right.
So prize money, travel, all of that stuff. So if you're third place in your region in Australia, which is like really good, right? You're a really good team at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
There's really no point for you to keep competing. Like, you're not going to get second place or first place in this tournament, or you're so far behind in points that you have no real chance to catch up.
Yeah.
And so these teams were just not playing, and we saw the participation numbers dwindle. And then what happens is now your number 1 and number 2 Australian players, they have no one really to practice against, to scrim against. And we saw teams fly over to the States to try to get early land practice before the big events. And so ultimately it just led to them not being competitive on the global scale. And what we saw with events last year in Atlanta was Australian teams, not to pick on these guys, they're super talented, but I think what we saw was them getting top 16, top 20, when really they should have potential to be top 8 or whatever it is, just like all the other regions. And so that in itself is a huge issue, obviously. And for us, if we are asking Australia to send a representative to this global tournament, then we need to make sure we're giving them the foundation to actually be competitive and have a real shot to win. And this isn't just something that's just going to happen overnight. Like, we're not expecting the game to come out and then Australia suddenly is the best team in the world, or Mexico, Europe, whichever it is. This will take time, and there's a lot of things that factor into that. But that's kind of the approach that we're taking, and we're going as far as to really put ourselves in the shoes of, let's say, an amateur Australian player, and we're looking at the roadmap that we're making, we're looking at the benefits that these players get, and we're just asking ourselves, is it actually worth it for me to compete? Is there enough prize money? Do I really have enough for me to see a return on all the time and energy that I'm investing? And like I said, there's a lot of things that contribute to that, but ultimately that answer is yes. Otherwise, Australia, Mexico, whoever it might be, they'll just continue to, not be as competitive as the United States and Canada on the global scale. So that's kind of the overall approach there, what we're trying to solve. And I think, as it pertains to the actual roadmap and the events that we're putting on and what everything looks like, we'll have more to share in the future.
Right. I like that. A core priority is ensuring that everybody in every region has just enough incentive to continue to compete or compete at all. Which is excellent, and especially because with the example that you gave concerning Australia and many other regions that kind of face similar issues.
Another thing, just to jump in, that's actually not mentioned in the blog here is there's going to be just like we've had in the past, there will be more predominant regions globally than others, right?
Understandable.
And so for those other regions, we are looking at ways to hopefully grow them over time. And the HCS Grassroots will be one of the key ways that we do that. And so let's just say Antarctica, for lack of an argument. Let's say Antarctica, for some reason, had this growing community, and they wanted to be involved, and it was important kind of territory for us to grow in. Yeah. We would start by determining who the key community ambassadors are over there, seeing how we could use HCS Grassroots to start having official activity, or at least support what's going on over there, so that hopefully, over time, these seeds grow into something that can warrant more activity on a larger scale. And so, stuff like that takes kind of years to really come to fruition. But it is stuff that we're all thinking about, and we feel like we are putting together the pieces to actually make stuff like that happen.
I like that. I guess you wouldn't really be able to get too much into specifics, but yeah, you would just look at different regions, some of the regions where the game may not be quite as popular, try to find some sort of a representative in that region, partner them with grassroots, and then give them some sort of a benefit, some incentive to make local events and to have people competing and to grow a scene there, whether that's prize money or consoles or whatever. I won't get too many direct stuff out of you, I'm sure, but that does sound like a really good way to get things started in that regard.
Yeah, that's the spirit of what we're looking to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and more of that will kind of be answering with the next pillars that you have here as well. You've got the next one is relationship and team organizations. A relationship with team organization.
Okay, I thought I had a typo in there. I was like, oh, I missed that one.
My bad. Yeah.
No, you're good. So yeah, like mentioned in the blog, like when HCS started, we were hyper focused on relationships with all the players, which is great. Like we need to have great relationships with the players, but as everyone knows, like teams are also like a crucial part of the ecosystem. And so your Optic Gamings, your Team Liquids, your Team Enviouses, they all came and went, and we were kind of, almost bystanders in that. And so as time went on, we were like, okay, we need to form relationships with these top organizations. We need to slowly learn about what's important to them. Hey, you're deciding to leave Halo. Okay, we totally respect that, but let us know why. Like, what can we do to improve in the future? We even went as far as like sending out surveys to teams to learn even more. And so how we're changing things for the future now is rather than kind of being bystanders in the whole process, we're proactively and have been proactively reaching out to teams, setting up meetings, and showing them the initial details of Halo Infinite Esports so that they can get excited and start planning their business around it. And ideally for us, when HCS launches in this kind of future Halo Infinite era that we're talking about in the blog here, we have all these top teams, or as many as we can, kind of invested and ready to go with rosters and ready to help create content and build the sport overall, right? And think about some of the benefits that they also provide to players with salaries, and hopefully this extends down to more lower tier pro players and amateur players as well. Right, some of the orgs can support them, and hopefully kind of filters down to more people in the ecosystem. So that's what we're kind of hoping to accomplish. And I think from there, it's all about doing our best to make sure that their investment in Halo is sustainable for the long term. And so it's meeting with them regularly. It's understanding how their business is going. What can we do to improve things? How can we help out? How can we share content? How can we maybe look for ways to increase revenue for them? So the way we're really seeing it, and we talk a bit about it at the top of the blog, but we're looking at Halo Esports as platform, and all these different people invest in the platform, and so the platform needs to give back to these investors for it to be sustainable in the long term. And so for us, it's not about, when we talk about sponsorships and revenue and whatnot, it's not about making money for Microsoft at the end of the day. Like, if ultimately all of our teams, all of our tournament operators and partners are happy with the scene, happy with the product, and Microsoft loses money on the program, then as long as we're hitting our key goals, then that's a success for us, and our partners can continue to invest in the long term. And we really feel like, and you see this in most other ecosystems today, you can't really thrive without all these different partners plugging into the platform. And so we've been taking a kind of foundational approach in how we put this all together. And so what I can say so far is that we've got pretty amazing interest in Halo Esports and have had it for a while, with all the conversations we've been having about HCS and Infinite. So I'm excited about the future. I think we are continuing to talk to teams, and hopefully that will manifest in some pretty awesome announcements next year when the time is right.
Yeah, which does sound really great. Now that I'm thinking about it, like going back into Halo Esports when Optic and Envy had left, just how much of a blow that was to the Halo scene. Like, just it's like you lose that legitimacy when that one team steps out. And I like how you say you're kind of bystanders in the process. You didn't really see that coming. You weren't sure how to ensure that relationship stayed there. So it's good that kind of from the ground up, you're recognizing the value that each one of these teams bring. They bring massive communities and influencers that then grow, Halo Esports and maintain Halo Esports, and I guess ensuring that they stay there. And even if that means you guys might lose a little bit in the process, but in the end, Halo as a community gets to, is maintained and can grow as a result. So I think that's very valuable, and it's important that we're focusing on that. So really good pillar to have there as well. I know a lot of people were shouting out 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves would be a huge pickup if we could get that. I know I'm sure you guys will try to find a way to talk to them. In the meantime, we also have roadmap, and this is kind of the big one, I think, as far as what people can expect going forward with Halo Esports.
Yeah, this one's huge, honestly, and I think we have very ambitious plans and goals here, and I think I would say if and when we're able to pull it off, it will net us and the community and the sport overall massive benefits. So typically, like even today, like after DreamHack Atlanta, a lot of fans don't really know what's next, right? And so this has been a common theme that people have been telling us, and it's a huge issue, to be honest. And so for Infinite, when we're ready to kind of launch HCS for that, our plan is to have a full 12-month esports roadmap, public and announced everything. So cities, dates, venues, handbook, format, rules, code of conduct, everything public. Just get it all out there. Right. And so now teams know, hey, here where I need to send my players. Here's how I can plan maybe a content roadmap around all of this. Here I can tell all my sponsors to, and I'm still from the perspective of teams, like teams can tell their sponsors, like, here are the different events that this Halo roster will be competing in, so they can sign sponsors for a longer term. For players, they can say, okay, I'm going to commit these next 12 months to competing. Exactly. And I know exactly where the events are going to be. I know the dates. I can plan my life around this, right? And like, yeah, maybe I have a job on the side and that's important to me. Or if I'm an amateur player and like, competing is just for fun for me, like you now can like, I think I saw Monza tweeted about it, but like, thank God I don't have to like spend $2,000 on a last minute flight. Like shout out to Monza, first of all, for even making it to these events. But like that's stuff that we want to like completely alleviate. And it's a huge undertaking for us. People in esports industry are telling us that no other esport has really done this or has this right now. So we recognize that it's a massive undertaking. We're taking it very seriously. That's why we've started as soon as we did. And this is one of the key things that we're really trying to accomplish. I mean, that goes into, just the like benefits of all this stuff is absolutely massive to try to wrap your head around. Like, think about fans who want to plan to watch events.
That too, yeah.
Like either spectate in person or watch online. They can totally like plan around all of this stuff. So there's kind of, I'm sure, benefits that we don't even realize are going to come out of this just because we'll be getting this 12-month roadmap out there. So we've heard the feedback. It's a massive undertaking. That's why we're hearing that no one else is really doing this, because it is so difficult and requires so much time. And so we're going for it.
Yeah. The biggest thing just being transparency which I think the community absolutely loves, is they want transparency. They want to be able to feel like they understand what's coming next. They can interact with it in some way. So I think that's huge. That's really exciting. It does make me wonder though, like let's say you drop the 12-month roadmap and most of it looks good, but then for whatever reason the community responds they don't like a specific thing. Do you think it's possible for it to be flexible in some way? That could be an issue too if you try to lock in 12 months and then what if on like month 9 there's something that's like really weird or whatever that people don't agree with? I don't know what that would be, but I'm just saying, like, would you be able to pivot? Would it be tough to do?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we are actually talking about and thinking about how we plan for scenarios like that. The realistic part of it all is that, once we lock in a 12-month roadmap, we're more rigid, right? Right. So the idea is like, hey, let's measure twice and cut once so that we get it right on this try. And we'll take whatever feedback we can into the following 12 months. But obviously, like, if there's something massive the community has an issue with, or this glaring oversight, I can't even fathom a scenario where this might be, then we're definitely open to doing the right thing ultimately, of course. So
But yeah, I love that. Just thinking about my interviews that I've had previously, and the fact that a lot of these Halo pros, especially our community, has a lot of older Halo pros who have full-time jobs. They have dedicated responsibilities they need to adhere to. Yeah. Having no announcements of a future event until like a few weeks before or a month before or whatever is very challenging. And we can feel the blow, like each event going from like Face It to Atlantic City to now Atlanta, and not knowing until that event happens. So you can kind of feel the blow in the interest. So yeah, having that 12-month roadmap I think will be huge for people just planning their career around that, planning their goals around that. It's going to be very exciting. So looking forward to that. The next one you have here is viewership.
Yeah, so if you look up at our goals at the top of the blog, like viewership, I think is the first thing listed. viewership and having great viewership, both on like live and VOD content, is kind of the lifeblood of esports. It's how teams and tournament operators decide to make their investments. It's how their investors decide to invest in games. It's how the community looks at relevancy, right? They go to Twitch, they look at the number one on directory, they say, okay, the most popular game today is League of Legends, Fortnite, whatever it might be. So it truly is kind of the lifeblood, or one of the lifebloods for relevancy in esports, and why people determine whether or not to invest in it. Obviously, there's things like in-person attendance and team participation, player-based online. Like, there's so many other factors, but in esports specifically, viewership is like one of the core ones, if not the core. And so we want to make sure that, because it's so important to the ecosystem, that we're also taking it seriously, and it's very important to us. And so when we think about how do we go about improving the viewership, and I've already seen some comments online. I think Moses said something. I think Flamesword was also chiming in. But like, yes, like ultimately, like, people need to love to watch and play the game itself to want to grow viewership in that regard. So like, we're 100% aware about that. Like, this blog doesn't really touch on the game at all. So more stuff about that and the game itself will come down the line. So we're definitely not ignorant to the fact that like the game itself is massively important. But on the esports team, and what we could do is also, you know, secure partnerships with teams that have these huge followings, like you mentioned, to help grow viewership. We could think about our broadcast and how we entertain people, right? There was a noticeable difference in the feedback that we got from South by Southwest when, you know, we took a very conscious approach in like reducing downtime and injecting all these different activities, and you know, for lack of a better term, letting our hair down a bit and being more casual and fun. And, you know what I mean? So like, it's doing more stuff like that we have the ability to also help out and contribute to ensuring that viewership can grow over time. And so, you know, like with growing international regions, there's not a silver bullet to this all. There's going to be multiple approaches, multiple kind of iterations, learnings, different partners in the ecosystem that all make it what it is. And so it's trying to do as many of those things as we possibly can to give us the best chance of having an ecosystem in a game that has great viewership. So kind of a larger takeaway there at a high level is like, viewership's crucial to us. It's one of the main determinations for success for the esports program. So being super transparent there, like, viewership is a key performance indicator when we look at our investment in esports and how we're performing. So it's important for teams, it's important for tournament organizers, it's important for the community, it's important for players who also stream and want to, you know, put their content out there. It's just important for everyone. And so we need to make sure we're doing what we can to make sure viewership is as great as it can be. So that's kind of rambled a bit there, but that's kind of that's kind of what we're looking at for this.
Even just looking at the paragraph here is saying, you know, running fair and competitive leagues and tournaments will always be the core of HCS, which I like. But then you say, you know, thinking about HCS as an entertainment brand. So it is more than just the leagues and tournaments, because how do you ensure that, you know, people, I guess just for these events, when you have in between games, downtime, or if you can kind of, you know, inject great content in between that gets people really excited and keeps their energy, or keeps them motivated and gets them more invested in the game overall, right? So
100%. And when you see the top esports today, it's a culmination of all these things. We could talk about League of Legends just because it's relevant today and finals is coming up. Like, they have an amazing streamer base. They have great teams in the league around the world that create great content and tell these stories. Riot does a great job themselves of creating content and pushing these storylines and just creating this ecosystem. So, you know, that's why when at any given point you go to Twitch, like, League of Legends is number one or top 2, 3, whatever it is. That's why you saw, G2 winning in the semifinals, most watched esports event. Like, there's no silver bullet, right? And look at League of Legends and Riot, like, they just celebrated their 10th anniversary. You know what I mean? Like, this stuff takes time. And I'm sure if you talk to those lead folks at Riot, they'll let you know all of the different learnings that they've had and all the different things that they've approached, and, you know, how they think about the broadcast and, you know, everything that goes into it. So there's not just one answer. It's not as simple as like, well, make a great game. And it's like, you know, there's so much that goes into all of this. And so
I'm sure. I do like the idea of leveraging your relationships with top teams to create stories, though, right? So, like, the first one that came to mind is just Towie and Evil Geniuses. He did amazing work for Evil Geniuses, and I became a huge fan. Not that I wasn't already a fan of the players, but I was just so much more connected to their story because I watched their content, and then I would root for them in the tournaments. So I think each one of those top teams, if there was some way that you create those storylines, you create that awesome content around these teams, and then get us excited for the events and have it during the events and around the events, whatever. I think it will definitely help, bolster viewership and excitement for these tournaments, and also make people feel like they got less downtime in between their games, hopefully.
Yep. And the other thing, just to finish off on that, like, you'll notice viewership is not just important for esports, but it's important for all of gaming now.
Of course.
And you're seeing, right, Courage goes to YouTube, Ninja goes to Mixer, like all these things that are related to viewership are coming out and having a huge impact. So, it's no surprise that this is such a huge part of just how gaming and esports is evolving. And what we're basically saying is, like, we recognize this is important to us, and on the esports side, specifically in the esports team, we are doing things to ensure that we get as much viewership as we possibly can.
Yeah, and some good pickups from Mixer as well, having Ninja and Shroud. Some good opportunities in the future there as far as, content influence goes. And,
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'd love to see it, I'm sure. The next one we got here is open ecosystem. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so obviously there's been a lot of talks in recent years about franchising, open ecosystem, pluses and minuses of both. Sure. When we look at where Halo was born and, throughout this entire coming up on 18-year legacy of this franchise, open ecosystem, open events is really what this community was kind of born on, what this esport was born on, and what, all these amazing legends kind of came from. So when we look at all of our goals for HCS today and what's really important to us and our teams and players and partners in the ecosystem, we believe that an open ecosystem, not only for players but for tournament operators, is the way we want to go. And that doesn't mean that in the future we might say, hey, maybe it makes sense now for franchising and whatnot. But for how we're thinking about HCS for Infinite right now, we just believe that franchising, an open ecosystem makes the most sense. And so we talk about it kind of in the blog there about why it's really important to us, and all of our goals and how we believe feeds into it. Another part of it that's talked about in the blog is what that means for tournament operators. We are looking for tournament operators who want to help Halo esports in this community grow, and they want to invest in it, and they want to have open relationships with the community and also open relationships with each other. And we see it in other ecosystems today. Counter-Strike is, an example just to throw out there. This game has incredible viewership, this incredible legacy, and all these amazing tournament operators who constantly one-up each other to do amazing things for the sport, for the players, for the fans. And we also want to create this kind of feeling of competitiveness in the ecosystem for basically everyone to benefit off of. Of course, like, all of this needs to be done in a sustainable way so that we continue to grow in the long term. And so that's something that we are going to be, keeping a close eye on and working closely with these partners on. And one thing I'll say is, obviously, we've been talking to teams and partners in the ecosystem. We've told them, like, hey, we're not franchising, and a lot of the feedback we're getting, if not all of it, is, oh, great, like, I'm very relieved to hear that. So we feel confident, based on the conversations with teams and partners, that we are moving in the right direction, and we have a lot of interest in teams ready to go. That doesn't mean that we expect teams to kind of come and go every couple months like we have in the past. Like, we do want to work with teams to ensure that they're here for the long haul, and that's what working with them proactively means.
Yeah. Of course, having an open format means not just having these big tournament organizers as well, but you said also, like, leveraging HCS grassroots and having a lot of the smaller guys run tournaments, but then these tournaments actually have an impact in some way in the overall scheme, like whatever your winnings are or whatnot. I'm not sure how you would organize it, but I like that too. So everybody kind of gets a piece of the pie, and it also encourages new contributors, new tournament organizers to jump into the space and to have meaningful tournaments for the Halo community here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think, when we look at other ecosystems and when new games come out, it's just amazing to see all the different tournament operators like putting on these tournaments basically every night. It feels like with different formats, whether it's kind of the core esports format or wacky formats, whatever it might be. There's
right.
just
Talking
always...
about how they specialize. Different tournament organizers bring different like specialties, capabilities to the broadcast, right?
Yeah, the broadcast, and just also giving stuff for players to play in, So
right.
We want to encourage a more bustling kind of ecosystem there.
Cool. Awesome. And the next one we have is, and the last one here is league feedback.
Yeah, so this is one of the kind of key pillars in this all, but obviously, early days of HCS, we got a lot of feedback about, hey, only having a pro league is kind of lame. We need open events, and we made changes, and then people were like, okay, we're not happy with this thing, so we made more changes, right? We have different partners. We, more closely, we changed Halo World Championship format. Like, we've been iterating on the format over time, and so the point in all of this is like this will continue to be an iterative and collaborative process with not only fans and players, but also teams and tournament organizers, right? You can expect that tournament organizers will be, reaching out to the community to get feedback on how they can better operate things, and it's not just 343 or like we're basically all in this together, and the idea is that we all need to work together, right? 343 needs to take feedback and integrate feedback from all these different partners. TOs need to take feedback from us, and they need to take feedback from players and fans, and teams will also get feedback maybe on their content or on their whatever it is. Like, it's this whole kind of web of everyone working together as partners in making this thing as great as it can be. And for us, like, we don't have egos in all of this. We're not here to like, build ourselves up or do something, just for 343 or Microsoft. Like, we're here to make Halo as amazing as a game and esport as possible, and sure we have, kind of enough fans and players and everyone to enjoy it for a long term. So, that's kind of what we're in it for.
Yeah, which is awesome. So, I mean, some of the biggest things I'm taking out of this is just kind of transparency between 343 and the community, which is something we wanted for a long time. Preparation, so having a full 12-month roadmap that's planned in advance so people know what to expect, and then feedback, ensuring that there's a constant discussion going back and forth between us, and you guys continue to grow and make changes and improve, because it is something that's a long process to kind of figure out what works best for Halo. But
and I think just to close off on one more thing there.
Sure.
I also think we as a community, when I say community, I mean literally 343 players, fans, teams, tournament organizers. We need to get really crisp and open about how we talk about feedback, and the ways that everyone takes feedback, the way that people give feedback.
Right.
When people confuse feedback for compliance and say, you didn't listen to me because you didn't do what I said. Well, we listened to you, but here's why we didn't do these things, right? We need to be open and honest about when people say, hey, do X, and we say, we actually can't. Okay. But we need to just hold each other accountable for the feedback that we give, the way we give feedback, the way we also receive feedback. And, we're committed as 343 to just being open and honest along the way. And I know for a lot of people with this blog, they were expecting these, kind of big announcements and whatnot. But really, like, what we've laid out here is, I would argue is one of the more transparent blogs that you'll find.
Yeah.
Esports and gaming. Like, this is literally, like, we took words here and everything here that we've taken from, like, presentations that we've shared with teams and stuff. Like, this is all stuff that we've had almost essentially behind closed doors that we're now making public, and so we'll continue to do stuff like this. So it's just it's a work in progress, and I know it sucks when like you have one piece of feedback and you don't feel like it's listened to, and now you feel like these people are not listening. So the entire idea is like, we take accountability for not being the best at it at all times, and we want to improve and be better at that. And I think it's a slow process, and how we work with all the partners and players and fans, really the proof is in the pudding, and we just need to continue to be open and transparent and build that trust. So we're committed to that.
Where would you say would be like the main location for feedback as far as delivering and receiving feedback? Is it that insider hub that we use for reach, or?
I mean, each different product will have its own kind of methods of feedback, right? when it comes to whatever it is, Halo Infinite, Reach, Halo Insider, HCS specifically, like all these different things, right? Community team is obviously super involved with this, the various development teams. Like there's no right now like one place to like, if you have any kind of feedback about anything on the Halo franchise, go here. And obviously for esports, like most of our community lives on Twitter. So we try to be as active as possible on Twitter and have open conversations. There's obviously communities on Team Beyond, there's communities on Reddit. And obviously people talk on Twitch and YouTube and comments and whatnot. So, that's kind of for esports, where our community lives and where a lot of our discussions happen. So, we definitely recognize that we need to kind of formalize that, especially on the esports front, I'll say, to make sure that, especially for players, and we talk about it a bit at the end of the blog, like they have reassurance that their voices are being heard and listened to. And that's important for us. Like again, like we don't have egos about this. Like we're not here to just do exactly what we want to do. Ultimately, we want Halo to grow. We want more players, we want more fans, we want our fans and players to be happy. And so that can only come through collaboration.
I agree. Sounds like a great initiative. Closing out the article here, you had a little bit about grassroots. It looks like this is kind of on hold temporarily. What's happening with grassroots?
Yeah, so grassroots is not on hold temporarily.
Sorry, my bad.
No. You're good.
Before I say
questions.
anything, Chris.
No. I have gotten some questions. So
sure,
just to clarify. Yeah. So HCS Grassroots, from a tournament operator perspective, will continue. We will continue to work with tournament operators to put on online and LAN events. That will continue to be a thing. The thing that's been put on pause is applications and entry into HCS Grassroots as content creators. And the reason being is good news. It's not like, oh my God, something's wrong. Like it's actually good news because you all, the community, have supported this program and this initiative and all the content creators so much that we are thinking about how we involve more members of the community. And we talk about it in the blog there, but there are more people out there who create things and create content than just the competitive community. And so we're thinking about how we kind of change our approach and kind of broaden our partnership with the community. So it's kind of vague. Unfortunately, don't have more details to share today. But ultimately, like, we feel like it's good news. And I think people will be excited about what's to come. But I understand that. And the reason we wanted to be transparent about this is because there was an application window a couple months ago, and I know people have been waiting to hear back on it. And so we needed to give an update. We had committed to end of October to kind of introducing the next wave. And so we knew that we needed to give an update. So that's what the update is. So for those that have applied in the most recent wave, like, your applications are not just thrown away. We're just not quite ready to talk about how all this will be integrated into that broader story that we've been talking about. So, and then on the tournament operator front for HCS Grassroots, we do see this evolving more. We talked about it earlier, but how do we make HCS Grassroots part of the overall official HCS roadmap more? Previously we just had HCS, and now it feels like we just have Grassroots. So in the future, we see these things kind of coexisting together. We do want to create an aspirational path for tournament organizers, small and large, to plug into the Halo ecosystem and hopefully grow over time. And we understand that, there are definitely ways, and there's definitely room to improve, especially when we look at our partnership with tournament operators. And so, that is something that we are definitely taking seriously and working on. And I think all of this will slowly come to fruition over time. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good to me. At this point in the article there, they have questions, a lot of great questions asked on Twitter. Instead of going into these questions, guys in the chat, I want your questions now. Everybody in the chat who has any questions about this recent update in the blog. Of course, guys, Tashi can't answer everything, so just try to, answer or ask your questions a little carefully. But these are being sent to me currently, so we'll read them off and try to give the best possible responses here. Okay.
Awesome.
The first one I got here is Kinsey. What's in store for the next year regarding MCC on PC Halo Reach, which is our immediate future right now?
Yeah, so don't have specific details to share at this moment, unfortunately, but we are looking to, and we talk about it in the blog there, where I think it was Blackjack who asked about PC. it is something we are taking very seriously. You know, the future of HCS. Is it on console? Is it on PC? Is it a mix of both? What does that all look like? So we are. Sorry. So we're just not quite ready to share more, but we are putting together the details and touches on it so that hopefully we can share things immediately. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, from what I could tell from what I had read in the post there, it seemed like you were like, yeah, you had plans to try to put together some PC LAN online events, and that you were kind of like testing, seeing the community's feedback as to whether or not they, like see how that goes and whether or not they like the idea of pairing them together. That possible. I'm not sure if I'm pulling answers out here, but the potential of something like crossplay is something that you'll be looking at and testing, I guess, through these initial events.
Yeah, I mean, basically all of the above, right? We flighting is happening right now, so we're getting lots of great feedback there that the community team and the MCC team are driving. And on the esports side, right, we have a lot of competitors playing in it, so they're giving us valuable feedback. But there's nothing quite like a tournament. So for us to get like truly test it all, we do want to run tournaments to kind of see what it's all about before we make our decision. And obviously, Halo has always been on console, especially from an esports perspective. And I know that, for a lot of players, it is a huge deal, right? It means, right, if you're the number one console player, for example, like, yeah, you might have new competitors playing, and you might also switch platform. Like, there's a lot that could potentially rock their worlds, right? And so, right, we don't want to take this lightly. We want to make sure we're working with the community, we're working with partners, we're doing tests, we're just gathering feedback before we kind of make a decision for what that looks like in the future.
Makes sense, and hopefully we get some updates on that soon. Now, some of these questions I'm just reading off, and I know you're going to have trouble answering some of this stuff, so I'll just read it, and you just answer in whatever way you can. So Godspeed says, is Halo Infinite reverting back to old school, or is it staying like the later Halos?
No comment.
Cool.
Sorry.
I don't blame you. Sudoth1 says, are there any plans to make a TV series about HCS or some sort of professional ESPN-style highlights show and ESPN top 10 in the house? Or in-house.
So there's a lot there. I think what I glean from it is like, is there any potential for a super premium production quality HCS show or series of
in-house
shows?
Content, yeah.
I mean, I think the answer is yes. We are taking content very seriously in what we do. It's not, as simple as like, oh, we want to do an ESPN show and suddenly it happens. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'd say we definitely have big ambitions on that front, but everything is kind of still in the works. And I could say something today and it could change tomorrow. So right. When we have more details to share, we definitely will. But, ultimately, our goals, we want to entertain, we want to grow the community, and we want to do what we can to accomplish those goals. So,
yeah. I mean, even just building off of stuff that was already established in the beginning of HCS, if you think of like Bravo coming in with HCS Season 1 and the updates and the roadmap, like I love those videos. Those were so cool, but then they stopped after Season 2. So, things like that, maybe bringing back stuff like that or improving and adding new valuable content for everybody to check out. The one saying says, will there be more info to look forward to before E3 of next year?
So more info regarding esports.
I assume he means Halo Infinite, but let's say all of these things. So regarding esports,
so I can't comment on
Infinite.
Okay. So on the esports front, I say yes. Our plan is to share more before E3. I think we're still locking in partners and details and whatnot. So we'll share things, when we're able to, honestly. So I'd say yes, but that's the plan. And until it happens and it gets more concrete, then I can't confirm that, like, hey, yes, on this date and, before E3, here's the news. So yes, on the esports front, ideally.
Okay. Question from MattyRums.
MattyRums.
Yes. You mentioned allowing teams that are good enough to find their way to be successful and working with multiple tournament organizers to be healthy. Is there any consideration to bring combines back, or to have something like a minor league series of tournaments run by other TOs, in brackets, grassroots TOs, for example?
So if I understand the question, it's more focused on like broader community and amateur play, like when he talks about combines. Is that? I don't want
should-
to misinterpret his question.
He was saying the same thing earlier, and I was having trouble understanding, even when we were just talking about it. So you mentioned allowing teams that are good enough to find their way to be successful and working with multiple tournament organizers to be healthy. Is there any consideration to bring combines back or have something like minor league series of tournaments run by other TOs?
Yeah, I think now I understand the question. So it's basically like in an open ecosystem, you want teams and players to be able to kind of show up and make their way up to the top. I would say there's nothing to share right now on specific ideas or formats and event things like that. I think ultimately when we look at our goals, like we want to do what we can to accomplish those. And like for us, it is important to have this kind of heroic story where for the first event, this amateur team gets top 64, and then suddenly at the end of the season, they are top 8 and stuff like that. So we do want to support those kind of storylines and give opportunities for teams to kind of, show up, make a name for themselves and crush it. So, that's the most I can say right now. And sorry, I know a lot of this is like kind of vague, and I don't want to like ignore the fact that I know people want very concrete, specific details, but
of course
we're offering what we can right now.
Yep. I mean, that's why we're here. We're doing what we can. Sunoff 1 says, what is the incentive for players who aren't placing 12th to 60th? There used to be semi-pro status now, and how can you justify them to come to an event and spend almost $1,000 to come on a flight and hotel to make it worth their while?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of a broad spectrum of different players that question kind of hits. Like for some players, they will show up, let's say, to DreamHack Atlanta just to hang out with their friends and meet up. And like if they get 3-0'd in the first 2 rounds, then they don't really care. And so for those players, like, hey, they support HCS, they support Halo Esports. Like, we need to make sure they can have a good time and hang out with their friends. And, Halo Esports events are a fun, safe place for that to happen. But we also understand that, like, players on the edge of going pro, maybe they don't have a top org to give them regular salaries. Like, getting to these events is very difficult. And so, the range of teams and players there is quite large. You'll hopefully find that as you get closer to kind of top 16 and top 8, you'll have more organizations involved, more promotion and salary and sustenance for those teams. I think the further you go down the bracket, if you will, or seeds, that will obviously become less so. And I think, like for us, I don't know that we could say like, hey, if you're top 64, if you just place 64th in this tournament, then here all like, you get almost the same benefits as like pros or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? Like ultimately, like the better you perform, the more benefits you're going to get. And that's just kind of the nature of competition and tournaments and the ecosystem. So there's not a silver bullet answer to like, hey, if you're top 64, top 48, you're going to get these benefits, or your $1,000 that you invested, you're getting that back that tournament, right? Ultimately though, like we need players to feel like it's worth it, and hopefully like they're able to see this 12-month roadmap and say, hey, this event, wherever it is, I want to go to that one. I can buy tickets and form my team early. I don't have to wait till they're too expensive. And they feel like, ultimately like they have to invest in competing and growing over time too. And that goes into all the practice and making relationships with top players and getting on good teams and whatnot. So, there's a lot to really like dive into and unpack there. I think ultimately, we do want to have like more clear benchmarks for progressing in the scene, whether it's top 64, 48, top 32. When he talks about semi-pro, pro status, all that stuff, like, yeah, we recognize like that stuff was awesome back in the day. And when you got top 64, or when you broke into the points, or when you made it out of split screen, or whatever it is, when you made it to main stage, like all these like huge benchmarks that really kept you going and kept you hungry and wanting to play more, like we do want to try to introduce more of that back to give kind of amateur players what's their next goal, right? It can't just be like, I'm showing up at an event and then my next goal is going pro. It's like, okay, this event I got points, this event I got top 64, this event I got top 48, and they're slowly kind of growing in the ecosystem. So, a lot to kind of dive into there, and there's not a silver bullet answer, but we definitely appreciate and recognize all those different kind of benchmarks that come with competing, right? It's not as just cut and dry, or are you pro or not.
Yeah, the blog I mentioned something about creating specific milestones for players, right? So they're achieving something along the way as they continue to improve. And I guess it also connects with MattyRums' question in having some sort of like a minor league or amateur league where these lower level players or players who are on the come up to pro have that incentive to play and continue to play. So hopefully we can get some more info on that soon. Pete Big says, have you guys considered doing Twitch rivals for Infinite in the future?
We have considered it. We do have a good relationship with Twitch, but obviously nothing to announce right at this moment.
Okay. MoxieCast says, are there any plans to create content with players?
Definitely. I think for our events leading up, we always do player interviews. I'm excited to say that we have, based on feedback from community, started inviting more players into doing these interviews outside of just pros. So I don't want to spoil it, but we have a cool interview coming up with an amateur player in the scene later this week, actually. So that's super exciting. Awesome. So 100% content made by us, but also when we look far into the future, we also expect that, tournament organizers are also working with pro players to create some content too. So I think at a high level, like content viewership is kind of, like I talked about, like one of the lifebloods, if not like the core lifeblood for all of this. So for us, having this, having a foundation that then all this content is created off of, either it's by us, tournament operators, players themselves by streaming and creating content, or teams, that's crucial for all of this to work.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like content's going to be very important, especially even just trying to inject some of what you learned, like the creativity that came from South by Southwest event, or even Gfinity, the cool kind of different content that they had there. That was more than just your typical interview, which was pretty exciting as well. Yu-Gi-Oh! Tools says, what route should people take in order to become a caster of this next iteration of HCS? Good question.
Great question. You could look at any scene and it's tough. You talk to any of those top casters, very tough to break in, especially in established communities like we have today, where people will kind of always look to the veterans, right, as kind of the experts and the established voices in the community. Right. So I would say ways to break in, like I'd say first, like we understand and recognize that in the future, we want more casters and we will need more casters around the world to kind of tell all these stories and be, on-air talent. So I would say the best way to kind of break into the scene is just start doing it. Start either on Twitch or Mixer or on YouTube. Just start casting stuff. There's plenty of kind of grassroots tournaments out there. There are even scrims that you could cast. Like if casting is truly what's important to you and what your passion is, then go do it. That's the best way to get noticed, how you'll get tournament operators, how you get fans kind of into it all. So, honestly, look no further than ShyWay. This dude is out there all the time. YouTube, Twitch, casting SWAT tournaments, like putting in the work. I'm sure you've taken pretty low rates just to do some events, just to kind of get your name out there. Like, it's a grind. I'm sure you can speak from experience.
Thank you. Yeah, but I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Tools myself, and he's already pretty invested in it as well. He's casting quite a lot. So I would say, yes, definitely keep it up. And hopefully those opportunities will come. And I'm really just hoping with the future of Halo Esports having more and more events and different sizes and scale, that more opportunities for casters will arise as a result of that. And hopefully there's some sort of funding into these smaller events that allow casters to get, well-deserved, profits from the time that they put in. Because yes, at the moment, a lot of it is voluntary if you do want to cast or, for a very low rate. So it can be tough right now, but keep grinding, Garrett. I'm confident you can get there as well. We have Rami, who says, will I see Tashi in ATL?
Yes, I will be there. I land Wednesday night, and I'll be there for the event, so I'm excited.
Awesome.
See you there, Rami.
Awesome.
I'm glad to hear he's going. This is awesome.
Yeah.
My day just got better.
Yeah, we got a lot of great people coming, which is going to be exciting to look forward to. Nick Meister says, Tashi, any support for rural countries like South Africa in the coming tournaments or in the future?
So no specifics to share on, regions and what that all looks like. I think for us, we want to support where there is an existing community. I think the level of which we bring them into the fold and support will be determined on quite a few things. One being, right, the size of the region, the community out there that's already existing, tournament operators out there, and then as well as how it potentially, especially for things like online tournaments, how regionally it plugs into whatever's nearby. There are definitely, I mean, you can talk to players, for example, in like Brazil or Colombia or Chile. Like there are like real world kind of hurdles in terms of online connectivity between all these different countries and whatnot. And so it's a serious balance for us, because when we think about player experience and upholding competitive integrity, it sometimes leads to just decisions that are tough for everybody involved. And so at a high level, like, we understand the South African community was part of the first Halo World Championship and none afterwards. And I know Nick Meister's been, hitting me up on Twitter, which I would definitely appreciate, because it is not a community that, we don't want to support. We just need to figure out the right way to do it so that it makes sense for, first and foremost, the players. Yeah, and it just makes me think one of the biggest issues previously has been that online connectivity, and it can be so difficult for people who are in much farther regions to have the connection necessary to compete at a high level. And I wonder, like, I'm sure that's a very important focus for you. I hope it's something that is fixed in some way, considering we have a new console launching with Infinite. It's like my only hope is that we can improvements in that category can happen. Yeah, as well. And all of this is just getting better and better over time, right? Yeah. Like internet connectivity is just getting better. Right. Obviously, all the different hardware, console, PC, like everything's just getting better. So I'm definitely hopeful for the future. But at the end of the day, like, we need to maintain a great player experience and competitive integrity. So yeah. And I guess while at the same time, looking into these communities, finding representatives of the communities, and trying to, have these grassroots types of events to encourage that there is competition locally. You don't necessarily have to, just be doing these online tournaments. Warlord says, "Hey Tashi, is it likely EU will be getting at least one Reach event prior to Infinite?" Can't say at the moment. I'd say we are open to all, kind of opportunities that come our way with HCS Grassroots. And we are definitely looking to partner with folks for different events around the world. But so I guess to answer the question, like, certainly possible, but nothing to really confirm or say right now, which I know is a difficult answer, but that's, sorry. That's fair. Ace says, will we see a proper ranking system in the future, or will you partner up with organizations such as Faceit? If he means ranking system about games, maybe he means outside with the tournament. Okay, like side, because he's saying partnering with organizations such as Faceit. So I'm not. Yeah, but Faceit also has like their own kind of matchmaking ranking system in their platform. So, I mean, kind of a big question there, and proper is kind of a relative term, and so I would have to know exactly what he or she are referring to start with. But I guess at a high level, when we're talking about seeding and whatnot, there's a lot that goes into that number of events, online and LAN, the difference between both of those, regionality as well, how many teams show up in the United States versus how many in smaller regions. All of this kind of plays a factor into how points and teams and players are all seeded. So, I guess ultimately, like, we're looking at feedback from the last 5 years and what we've done previously to constantly improve things. And so I don't have any specific details to share today, but that's our, high level thinking. Okay. Thank you, Tashi. That's all we have for our questions in the chat for now. That's it? That's it, apparently. I don't know. That's what Caster says to me. I'm sure more questions will arise, and plenty more when we actually get the ball rolling with some of this stuff. We see the roadmap and everything, and that's what we're looking forward to. But thank you for coming on, and it was great chatting with you. As far as the near future, what's next? What would be the next step for the Halo fans to look forward to, and what should they be prepared for? Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, and thanks for running HCS Weekly. The full crew with you and UGC. Like, this show is becoming more and more of a kind of staple in the competitive community. So that's awesome to see, and thank you for covering all these 5 weeks leading up to. Happy to. Yeah, the anniversary today, so it's been awesome. So seriously,
Yeah.
thank you guys.
No problem.
Thank you for all the fans that watched. So what's coming up next? DreamHack Atlanta. So that's April 15 to 17. We've got a Halo 3 4v4 tournament for 50K, as well
Nice.
as a Halo 5 2v2 tournament for 5K there. So yeah, more Halo 5 as people have requested. So I think the tournament at AC proved to be pretty awesome. So hope we get more of the same in Atlanta. And yeah, I'm curious to see, like you mentioned earlier with MattyRums, like what is going to happen with Tox and Lux and, you know,
Right.
all the storylines that come out of there.
Right.
Crazy kind of blemish in the Tox kind of armor there. So I'm curious to see.
course.
My gut says they are like very practiced and focused and like taking this personally. So
Yeah, it does seem
I'm
like they're coming
expecting
back with
Yeah.
force for sure. Yeah.
take no prisoners, 3-0s and 4-0s all around. So, but we'll see. So Lux are a scary team. So, and obviously they proved that down in AC. So I'm personally excited to be there. We're gonna have, you know, we work closely with DreamHack to ensure that free play is scheduled. So like mentioned earlier, there's people there who just want to hang out and play on LAN. So we made sure that it's properly scheduled as soon as stations open up, and as soon as time allows. Get on there and play some Halo, and I might bring my controller so I can play too. So it's been a little while.
Oh yeah, are you rusty? How are you gonna do?
Definitely rusty.
Definitely rusty.
It wouldn't take too long for me to get back. The big thing that like takes a while for me to come back, especially as we've been going back to play Halo 3 and now some Reach, is just the timings in your own head. There's
Right.
just, when you play these maps and these game types for so long, you have all these timings in your head about like, I just killed this player, they're going to respawn in 10 seconds on this part of the map.
Right.
I can make my push here, or I should wait for a teammate. Like all this like timing that goes into the stuff. Like for me,
Yeah.
that's the stuff that like, oh duh, like that needs to come back.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Slowly but surely.
I'm down. If anyone needs an eighth for a land at DreamHack, let me know.
I'm planning on heading over as well. I'll bring my controller and maybe we can get some games in. If it's an H5 1v1, I got you. I got your number. Anything else?
Oh,
Maybe
100%,
we'll see. But looking forward to it. Thank you once again for joining me. It was a great chat, and yeah, just excited for the future of Halo esports and Halo in general. Really hoping for big things.
Cool. No, thank you guys so much. And I've only been able to read some of the tweets and outpour of love, but thank you everybody for supporting HCS these last 5 years, right? We know it's been rocky at times, and through thick and thin, the community has been there. So, you know, we don't take things for granted, and, you know, we're getting a lot of great feedback already about the blog and how we're thinking about the future. So, you know, we're very excited about the future. We're very hopeful, and yeah, let's blow this thing up. Let's get massive. Let's go nuts, you know?
Looking forward to it. I'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, guys, that covers everything for today's show. 5 years of HCS. It is marked today. I'm curious to see what the next 5 years are going to hold. That'll close everything, though. Thank you guys for tuning in. We do have our HCS Grassroots giveaway. You type !Grassroots in the chat for your chance to win the BR skin and nameplate. Probably already have the winner, I believe. Yeah, there we go. We got Murph Masta with the win. Enjoy your VR skin and nameplate. Of course, we also have our merch. You guys can check out the merch as well. Anything that you purchase here not only supports the show, it supports me as well. And as usual, I would highly appreciate that. That's everything for today's episode. We'll be back next week with more HCS Weekly. Stay tuned. I'll see you there.